Markus, welcome. I'm excited to chat with you more. So you're running this this protocol, this company, XYO. Give me the landscape of the structure of the organization. So I know it's a coin that you have, the XYO coin. You've raised money, I think, in 2018 through an ICO, an initial coin offering. Is there a current legal structure with equity and shares as well that funds development, or what's the landscape of what we're talking about?
Hi, Mike. I love that as a first question. In a lot of communities that wouldn't be the first question. It's like, oh, how can I buy a Lamborghini from your coin?
Well, yeah, I'll ask you that too.
You asked that question, which is awesome. Yeah, quite different than a lot of other crypto projects in that we don't have a foreign foundation and some elaborate international structure. But we have actually two US entities, and they're both C Corps. And so it's a Delaware C Corp, right? XY Labs, and XY Labs owns the XYO Foundation. And XY Labs was an LLC in like 2012 till 2016. So we were around for a while, and then it became a C Corp. And we did that because we like the transparency that gives to people and the trust. As a C Corp, here we fall under US laws and US regulations, and provides trust even to people outside of the US, right? In that our structure is properly set up. But we have even more. You mentioned like we did a ICO in 2018, and that's correct. We also did a Regulation A offering, which means we were allowed to raise funds from accredited and unaccredited investors. And so now we have more than 23,000 shareholders, plus our token holders. And the Regulation A offering, because it was so large, now we have to do semi-annual filings with the SEC. We just did our annual report on May 2nd, so just a few days ago. And so we are maybe one of the most transparent crypto projects out there, right? Because we have audited financials, semi-annual filings, and all these things with a US structure.
What did you use to raise under Reg A to have the 23,000? Was it a platform, some crowdfunding platform?
Yeah, we looked into them, and they in 2018 and 2019, that's when we raised most of that money. They weren't just as good as they are today. The fees were really high, and the flexibility very low, and the Regulation A offerings then were mostly real estate companies and not forward like fintech and technology companies in general. And so we decided to do it ourselves, and we set up our legal structure, and we have amazing legal advice, and did it all in-house, from the setup to the marketing to everything.
And could you take, or did you take money from people internationally? Is there any rules on that across country borders?
Yeah, you can do that. You need to look at the jurisdictions and decide which jurisdiction you can take money. For the US, it's not a problem at all. They allow you to take money from international investors, but then certain jurisdictions might have certain restrictions. So we look into those and try to make sure that we raise only where we are allowed to raise.
Gotcha. Interesting. So there's two companies. So you have XYO, that is a C Corp that you have 23,000 investors in. During that round, go ahead.
Let me clarify. So there's the XY Labs, which is the C Corp, and then there's the XYO Foundation, which is wholly owned by XY Labs. And so the shareholders are in XY Labs. The XYO token is in the XYO Foundation. However, it all comes up to XY Labs.
How does that, you mentioned it's quite unique, which it is. How does that impact your business now going forward? Is it somewhat exclusionary, where the people who own those shares, unlike a token, there isn't a completely liquid market of buying and selling, which is, part of the friction that people can't buy and sell equities easily in the secondary market on private companies. Does that have a practical impact on operations, or is it just the way it is?
I love that question even more than your first, because we have the shareholders, and there's a lot of like small holders there. People who have like 40 shares, right? Or people who have 100 shares, like small holders, right? And we want to provide some liquidity. And the IPO is a difficult thing. So for a company, like usually you have, if you list on NASDAQ, you have $1 million listing fees, and then you have like $1 to $4 million in compliance fees plus distractions from quarterly reports, right? But there's obviously a long-term benefit for larger companies. But we decided to list our companies on something called an alternative trading system. So in the United States, you have the national exchanges like the NYSE, NASDAQ, and Friends. And under it, you have something new. It's called alternative trading system, or ATS. And it's a way to tokenize securities and list them on a marketplace with a regular order book, bid ask, and so on. And we are listing with a market leader. We plan to list with market leader this quarter. It's called T0 ATS. And they have like 90% or so of the market right now. And we're going to be the 7th or 8th listed asset on the market. So it's super exciting. However, liquidity is still pretty small. It's not like a NASDAQ, right? It's a very nascent space. It's like Bitcoin in 2009. So we provide liquidity to our shareholders, plus, and then we have the XYO tokens, right? And those people have lots of liquidity because XYO trades on Coinbase and Friends. So we have the utility token, and then we have the security token and those things. And you will be able at T0 to trade from XYO to XY Labs shares back to BTC to whatever. So it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, what a great concept, because that seems to be the missing link. Most people I interview that have a token, they typically explain the token as either, when you really boil it down, the token is either completely standalone from the project and it's not correlated in any way. It's just a mechanism for moving money from people's wallets into the company's wallet. And that ends up being useful to the extent that the company can generate funds to operationalize the business, but there isn't the substantive voting privileges or really any privileges in the company itself. So you'll have a company, you have a token, people buy the token, founders own the token, they sell it, and then they have money for the business. But it's like, that's clearly not the end state of people don't just want to buy a token that's detached from the company or detached from the project. So I really like that. I'll check it out. That's an awesome that you guys decided to do that.
Thank you.
Separately, you have there is a XYO coin that's operational that looked like, from my research, went through a massive price swing around November last year. Do you have a story as to why you think that may have happened, or is it just people getting crazy and buying and ramping up prices like tends to happen?
Good observation. Our token price from the low to the high last year, like 460x in price, and a lot of things happened. We launched in 2018, and if you recall, in 2018. January 1st or something, the ETH price was at like $1,000, right? And then in March it was at like 500 and so on, right? Until it hit $70. And we launched into like a super, super, super hard environment. And so different than a lot of other crypto projects which came into being in 2017, we had to make sure that we build a business model which is sustainable, right? We couldn't just rely on our reserves. And so we built something which made us profitable as a company. We just reported $5.8 million of profits for last year, and we do that through online marketing. So we're really good at online advertising. It promotes our ecosystem and our apps, and brings partners into our ecosystem, which generate cash. And so this advertising makes XYO more known and brings more people into the ecosystem. So we have now more than 4 million downloads of our nodes, which makes us one of the largest blockchain networks in the world. And but also then the money which comes in, we go and buy XYO in the open market and put it back into the ecosystem. We wanted in the beginning, when we launched XYO, we wanted it to be all like super decentralized, as is the dream of most crypto nerds like myself. But most companies didn't want to pay us in XYO, and it was difficult for traditional companies to interact with our smart contract and all these stories. And in 2018, they all thought, I'm a money launderer or a drug cartel boss or something, right? And so we told them about the solutions we provide, and then blockchain came second in that conversation. And then we changed, and like we do monthly invoicing, and you can pay us in US dollars or any other currency you want to pay us. And then we take that money, right, and put it into our ecosystem to pay the nodes and incentivize the nodes. And so this really snowballed in a way because as we grew, right, we had more advertising, which brought in more dollars, and which made us buy more XYO, which led to more advertising, and it went and went and went and went. And then it really accelerated in September. We got the Coinbase listing. Before we were listed on some other exchanges, but Coinbase obviously hit it off. And then some other listings happened right after that. And then conveniently, 2 months later, on like November 10th or so, the market started to crash. and we are where we are right now. But for us, we're not crying about it because it creates opportunity. We have a real business model, right? So we have companies which pay us, and so now it's an opportunity for us to be more competitive in the market and push some other companies aside.
Yeah. No, there's no good or bad to price. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. It is what it is. When you were buying ads and then converting those was it ads specifically to target people who were interested in the coin? And if that's the case, was there something structurally unique about XYO that made it profitable to do that? Or do you place emphasis in the tactics of the ad campaigns? Yeah.
So in the beginning, like 2018, we wanted to build this IoT network. And I was speaking with the leadership of Comcast. I was at their headquarters, and it was like SK Telecom, it's a Verizon of South Korea, and a number of other big companies. And obviously, they didn't like what I was talking about, and we had good conversations. But in the end, they were hesitant to do like larger proof of concepts and to upgrade their IoT infrastructure to put XYO into the infrastructure. And so we decided to launch an app called Coin. And Coin is an augmented reality app which lets you earn rewards as you explore the world. And in the beginning, it was like all passive background data collection. We do something we call a bound witness, where basically one device interacts with another device. And then we added more and more data collection in-app and even offline data collection. And we made it very easy for non-crypto people over time to be part of the ecosystem. And today we think about 80% of the people who come into the Coin app are non-crypto people. And we did that by gamifying it and letting people earn rewards and say, okay, you can be part of the story and earn a lot, if the market plays and the token plays right. And then we allowed people to redeem not only for XYO, but also for like guitars and virtual reality headsets. And we had sweepstakes and have sweepstakes in there and like gamified it more and so on. And so we made it really, really attractive to people to be part of that app. And today our established users use the app more than 3 hours a day in the foreground. It's more than all social media apps combined. And
wow.
And so our advertising campaigns were targeted in bringing in those users into the app, and then they get exposed to XYO from there. And 95% of our redeems are for XYO. And so 80% of them are non-crypto people, but 95% basically become crypto people as they redeem. So we are growing the ecosystem, and it's really fun.
Wow. It's fascinating because I think from a startup founder's perspective, you're running since 2018, so only a couple of years, and you are limited into the number of things you could possibly do. So to spin up an app on the side called Coin and then market that and think about it and productize it and build it and launch it, it's a lot of work. Do you think about that as being the primary product? Because as I understand, just a level set, XYO is a network or an oracle, which I think of as a network of IoT devices. You guys started off in 2012 or 13 focusing on IoT, realized that location specifically is a problem because people can spoof it or fake it. And so there seems to be clearly a need to have a reliable way where people can validate their location in exchange for whatever, right? E-commerce orders or in-game rewards or something. And so using these connected devices, the IoT already has the established network. You say, let's layer on validation and then turn it into a decentralized location validation network. Is that close to how you would describe it, or am I articulating that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly how I describe it. And then out of that grew like a larger and larger oracle. You're exactly right. And then we tried to increase our total addressable market. Most crypto focused companies, they deal inside the ecosystem, right? So it's like crypto company to crypto company, and those are the clients. And we thought, the world is so much bigger. In 2018, 2% of Americans own cryptocurrency. Today, I think it's somewhere at 20%. But so the market was like super small, and it would have not made sense to just deal within the cryptosphere. And so we have traditional people coming into the app, and then on the side where we sell the data and provide Oracle services. It's not only blockchain companies like Chainlink is a partner of ours, for example, but a lot of traditional companies work with us. And then in the middle, everything is run with blockchain. So in the beginning, also we were like this pure breed, like location focused company, and today we call ourselves a reality oracle. So we create trustless data, which gets connected with smart contracts as a metaverse and other digital realities. And trustless in a way, it's because we validate and verify the data and have certain redundancy and certain mechanisms in the XYO network, which give you like trustlessness around the data, which is unique from Oracle.
Yeah. Tell me what doesn't work about this approach. So if you start off and you say, we want to build a network, an oracle of location connected devices, and we're going to build a token on top of that, and people can get compensated, all the devices, the owners of the devices get compensated for validating location. There's companies that are incentivized and want to validate location of different items. So if I'm in your shoes, I'm thinking, let me go and sell this onboarding process to these companies and grow the liquidity of the token, get the number of devices up, and then start off focusing on the lowest hanging fruit, probably like e-commerce packages that are getting stolen or stolen cars or that kind of thing. If that's the playbook, that wouldn't include the VR coin app. Was there a like an untenable or insurmountable challenge in growth on the first playbook, and then that's why you added on the emphasis with the game?
Yeah. The difficulty was to get the IoT network to grow, to be able to create this trustless data. And so we thought, okay, mobile phones are IoT devices, right? And so that's why we pivoted there and created the Coin app. And it's not a pivot; it's more an extension to increase the addressable market. And then we realized it's so good at not only getting location data, but other IoT data, like let's say temperature or light sensors or whatever, or offline data collection, even where our nodes, we have a deal with someone where we our users in certain zip codes, they go and collect opening hours of businesses and take pictures and other parameters of their business, right? And then it gets validated and verified by other nodes, and then it gets meshed up with other data, and then sent to that, validated through the XYO network, and then sold to that partner. And so it has a location component, right? Because the store is somewhere, but the data is so much more than just location. So location anchors it, but it's so much more than just location data.
The IoT device, how much does that vary and matter? So if you're taking device location from an Apple iPhone, Apple is going to control the permissions. They're going to control all sorts of metadata and data about that location. Does that play is that difficult, or does that play a role into the Oracle when the sources of hardware and information is different in many different cases?
Yeah, it does. That's why we have something where the devices create bound witnesses. So when two devices see each other, they create a bound witness, which is basically a cryptographic handshake. And it can be like the proof of origin for an e-commerce package, let's say, right? You know where it started and then you know where it ends up. Or if you have two devices, right, two phones, let's say, you know where they started and where they ended up, and which path they took maybe along the way. And it's that, and then we have other devices. For example, we have a device we call the Sentinel X NFC card. It's an NFC card. Can also be a sticker, have it on an e-commerce package or inside the e-commerce package, right? And you scan it and it gets validated and verified. And by having more devices, right, you get, excuse me, by having more devices, you get more and more certainty.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, conceptually, the more devices that validate the location, the more certainty there is. What do you think about the location collection method in the first place? When I think of location triangulation, I think of cell networks. So I have my cell phone tower, and then it's using the geometric, however the magic works, where they're figuring out exactly how far I am from different towers, and they could triangulate my location with an iPhone or Android or any cell phone. That's different than, is that different in the case of IoT devices? Are they somehow coming up with their location by some other method?
Often they can't come up with their own location. And then if you do triangulation like that, that's very easily spoofable. Like you kind of trust into it. What we don't say that we do location better or lots of other data we don't do better than like GPS, for example. GPS is amazing, right? But we provide certainty that it's good or bad, not as good, that the data is real and that it came from somewhere and these kinds of things. And that's a big distinguisher, just because as you have a more and more automated world, which has with automated supply chains, for example, right? You want to make sure that your package is really on the doorstep before you pay the vendor, and or the self-driving car is where it is, and these kinds of things. And with spoofing and hacking so there's going to be more and more spoofing and hacking of location data, just because there's going to be more nefarious actors, because there's more value attached to location.
So do you think about I know there's many different applications for many different needs to know where objects are and people are. Do you think low-hanging fruit is packages, driverless car? When I think of driverless cars, to me, it seems like, well, the network of Teslas that are going to be out there the Tesla's going to know where every Tesla is, because it's connected to the satellites, and they'll have their own secure network. To me, that doesn't seem like low-hanging fruit. The packages, maybe, but it's really there would have to be that ID tag on every package, which seems perfectly plausible, and it would be the point from where the delivery guy or gal drops off the package to the point where you receive it, because sometimes people steal packages off the doorstep. Are there other scenarios that stand out as being critical to or early adoption where the demand is?
Yeah, it's actually it's all that location data, which has like a location component, but then so much more data around it, and other data is more into it, like sentiment data, for example. Like how's the sentiment? I don't know, on Times Square right now, and together with location data and so on, and the nodes can provide that data, and we can do it in a trustless way, right? Because we have lots of nodes, we know where they came from, and that they're there, and they interact with the other nodes, and validate and verify each other's data, and that data then gets used for a number of applications. For example, to improve a POI, point of interest system, right? And which a lot of them are very wrong right now because of COVID and because of the way they collect data right now. The data comes from a lot of third-party sources. They have no way to verify them, and so lots of maps are wrong. And with our technology today, it's happening today. This data gets validated, and you can have 100% accuracy, and the way we do it. And I think that's even bigger than the packages on your doorstep, just because it's trust in data we provide, and then the end use cases are endless, right? When like, okay, I'm like 99.9% sure that data point is correct, right? It allows you to do more things in a more automated fashion and in a better way.
So essentially, the methodology is that if a object is passing through some location and it's connecting with 5, 6, 7, 8 other nodes or other objects in that location that are sending and receiving data, then you don't need to actually know the location relative to the Earth. You just need to know that they're close to each other. So they say, hey, this object is nearby, and we all kind of know where we are approximately, and therefore that it's nearby, which makes a lot of sense. So you're almost saying you can, in theory, every company can know where every product is at all times throughout the whole production cycle.
That's right.
Yeah. You would know, like an example of that might be, hey, you want to distribute vaccines to every person or every health center in a country. There's a centralized location where they're all made. They're put in boxes. They're shipped out. From there, it's like it's just who knows where it is. But if they had this device on there, they could see that every pathway that each one of these boxes of vaccines is taken, as one other example.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. What you mentioned, Times Square and sentiment. Can you explain what those are?
Yeah. So the sentiment of people, let's say, if they're partying or if they're angry in a riot,
Oh, okay.
And let's say you have 100 data points and 99 say they're partying and one said they're rioting, right? Then you connect that with other data. You stack other data on top of that, like you have the location of people, for example. Then you can just add more and more data points to it, and that validates and verifies data as well.
What do you think about tagging people? What do you think about tagging dogs? Since right now, I think the majority or a lot of dogs and pets have been tagged for not location, but for identification. But in this concept, I think the reason why they don't do location now is that it takes energy. So you have to somehow, charge the device or something. But I don't think people are opposed to it conceptually. Do you see that as being an inevitable pathway? And then people, I don't know.
Yeah. It's we use zero knowledge proofs. So we can't say, like it's Mike who is his data point in Times Square. But for dogs and other things where other people can know the location and when they occur the network, I think, it's a great thing.
How about, so we all recognize, or I'm beginning to recognize, you have for a while, the power of this, and that especially when it's decentralized, people, there's no individual that can shut it down. So when that happens, I think, how does this, what are the areas we want to make sure the traps we don't fall into? For instance, if a government were to use this for the purposes of wanting to know the location of every citizen, say an authoritarian government somehow were to use this network or this power for their own means, is there a pathway to that in worst case scenario, or what are your thoughts on that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's not possible without technology to do that. Right now, I think they call Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and friends, and say, give us all the data of all the people, kind of, because they have that power. But with us, we don't know the identity, for example, behind someone. And we also don't know, like I said, we use zero-knowledge proof, so often data points can be connected. And so you have a set of data points and you have another set of data points, and you wouldn't know if those are connected or not. But with a system like Verizon's, right, you'd know that this is Mike's phone, right, and you have all the data about Mike, basically. And that's just not how our technology works.
So in the case of, say, a package was delivered on my front door, and I want, or the company, Amazon or some other delivery company wants to know, hey, did it really get there? Or I want to know, where is it now? When you say that the network uses zero knowledge proofs and doesn't keep the identity of that node or that package, how would I be able to figure out where that package is?
You need to know which data you're looking for. So you basically query the network, you know, this is your package, and then you can query it. And then, but how the data is insulated, you can't connect it to then the next package and to the next package and to the next package. So you
I see.
About that one package.
That one. So you could, do you think of it by analogy like an address, like a Bitcoin address? You can look at this address, you don't know who owns it, but you can see everything that it does.
Yes, in a way. If you can decrypt it and everything, yes. Yeah.
Is it similar in that sense where the net, like Bitcoin, it's all public, right? All the addresses are available to everyone, but no one knows who owns these different addresses. Is that structurally the same way that XYO is?
No, the data gets stored in something we call the Archivist. And it's like a data storage system, and which is decentralized. And in there, you see data points, but you don't know how they are connected. But you see where data points can come from, right? So you see the proof of origin that one data point, for example, interacted with another data point. You can see that's this cryptographic handshake, but you don't know that you have basically a sea of cryptographic handshakes, but you can't connect them except if you know what you're looking for.
I see. This is all amazing and really complicated. How did you architect this, or your partners? What was like the founding days when you guys scaffolded this project? How did you actually do it? Were you sitting around whiteboarding with one or two other people, or were you studying other projects and emulated something else that's working?
Yeah, we have this amazing person working for us, Ari Tro. He's a super visionary. He's a co-founder of the company and the CEO and CTO today. And he's just a Elon Musk type character. He's from South Africa. He's born like 6 months earlier than Elon, I think in the same area, and not yet richer. But he's like this visionary technologist, and he started playing with computers. I think when he was 11, he built computers, and this is crazy. And we spoke about the problems of location and how we can fix that. And I'm not as visionary. And then Ari was like, going on and on and on. And then the next morning, right, you saw another sleepless night. And then he had all these ideas. And then, we whiteboarded and things happened, did a bunch of research. And then another sleepless night later, right? It shifts and it shifts and shifts and shifts, and then it just was born after a week or two, and then that was the rough edges, and then we were thinking, okay, wow, we have something here. How can we make something out of it? And then we built a business around the idea, and
yeah, the rest is history. So did you come into that relationship with, 2012 to 18, was that your time working on IoT? So do you think of it as he came in with the technology and sort of the visionary perspective on where the technology can go, and you came in with the understanding of IoT, location, and that landscape?
So Ari and I, we go back a long time. Ari started XYO Labs, the underlying IoT company, in 2012. I only joined in 2018 as a co-founder with XYO. And in the meantime, so Ari and I and some other people, we had an ad tech company before, which grew like to 200 people. And then Ari left in 2012 to pursue XYO Labs. And I was CEO of that ad tech company, which we sold in 2015. And then I did a media publishing company, Hive Media, which sold 2 months ago to Open Web for 60 million. So that was good. And then an email technology company and a lot of other tech. We had a data company which we sold to Townsend Data, which is in New York. And we were always like big systems, data, marketing, online marketing type guys, and so Ari left in 2012 to then start XYO Labs, and then all the things on my side weren't quite done, but one of my projects was failing. The email was like a mobile email technology company, or it wasn't growing as it was supposed to, and I shut that down, and then we decided to build XYO.
So at that time, were you working with him throughout those ad tech businesses?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you about this because I'm just have a personal curiosity because I don't understand a lot of what goes on underneath the hood. Yeah. How would you explain the superficial understanding of ad tech conceptually? When I think of it as ad tech, I think there's certainly Google, Facebook that are in the ad space. They dominate a portion of the ad market, but I recently learned it's fairly small relative to the total market. There's many other ways that advertisers advertise through different networks. How does the landscape, like what's going on, and what does the landscape look like in ad tech?
Yeah, it's changing because so you have the publisher, which is a website, right? So it's a source. And then you have the advertiser, which could be, say, XYO, right? Buying ads. And then you have a lot of things going on in between there, which is a technology which allows you to have, for example, a real-time bidding system, which allows you to bid on an impression. And, there's like trillions of display impressions out there, right? And there you can bid on every single one, and it's all automated. And so you have thousands of companies serving this ecosystem of real-time bidding, for example, supply side, demand side, and data comes in there, and to optimize basically your bid for that advertising. So the publisher wants to increase the price as much as possible, right? And the advertiser wants to have the best possible return on their advertising spend. And that actually goes hand in hand, right? Because if you have the data, if you can target someone well, let's say, and their intent is to say, I don't know, buy a new car, and you know that, and so you send them car ads, right? And it converts. It means that you can bid more for your ads, which benefits the publisher as well as advertiser in that case. And so this ecosystem just allows you to be more efficient in that way.
Yeah. Is the majority of the actual surface area to the consumer's eyeballs, is that on display advertising, on on other websites. I'm on a website, I see an ad for something as I'm scrolling down. Is that primarily where the surface area where the rubber meets the road, where the ads are facing the consumer?
Yeah, it's that, and then it's video ads.
Video,
they become more popular than influence advertising. It's a new form in a way. Then you have 5-6 years ago, companies like Taboola and Outbrain which did like native advertising, and so it's always new thing, and then search, of course, and it's always changing. It depends how consumers convert the best, and also publishers have to make sure that they don't show too many ads in a way so they don't annoy the users. So they try to find advertising formats which are less annoying, which native advertising was at least in the beginning, where it's like, maybe you want to read those 3 articles as well, and then you go to another website. And so.
Do you find it interesting still, or do you feel like the industry is kind of stagnating in terms of what's technically possible with, I imagine the publishers are going to be limited by their ability to reach consumers with data. And so once there's kind of a proliferation of data, once this is all the data that you have, then there's just a race to the bottom. Do you feel like it's an exciting time or kind of a dull time to be in that space?
I think it's still very exciting. It's it consolidated a lot. Google and Facebook and some 2-3 other friends like that. They consolidated the market, and so it's you rely on them. You have to play by their rules and their technology and what they want. And so it's less cowboy than it was in a way, and that can have certain advantages, right? With consumer protections, for example, but it also can rob the markets of opportunities, and it's monopolistic in a way, right? Because Facebook and Google do what's in their best interest, right? And they don't care much about a small publisher or advertiser or ad tech company. Yeah. So, but it's still very exciting because I think it's so high tech. It's like high frequency trading on steroids.
It really is.
Knows it's and so there's always like trying to find an edge and doing things in this market, and because it's so high tech that you can scale it very quickly as well. You have a great idea, you build something, and suddenly you touch millions of people. So
And a great idea in ad tech would be something like an access to a pool of data and that's generally what you're able to scale and monetize. And it's interesting. Do you think there's a pathway? Let me ask you this. I've been meaning to ask you this like half an hour ago. What is XYO? What's I looked around a little bit. Is it just a name that Ari came up with years ago, or is there a significance to it?
The O stands for Oracle, and the XY are the coordinates in the system.
Oh, so that's great.
X and Y coordinates, and XY Oracle network.
I like that, actually. I'm glad I asked. That makes it a lot more relevant in my mind. Yeah. So what do you see, like, this plays out to full success, full fruition? Do you see the game as something that expands and becomes like a big part of a lot more people's lives? Or do you see this more like ad tech in a way, where it just runs behind the scenes? Most people don't even know it exists. It just improves the business operations, and people see the benefits of it, but they don't necessarily see what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, so we have like 4 components in our network: the sentinels, which are devices which collect the data; the bridges, which relay it; the archivists, which I mentioned, are the devices which are storing the data; and then the diviners, the devices which crunch the data to give you the best answer to a given question. And all those 4 components get incentivized with XYO to be part of this network, and they will provide useful data. And the idea is to get more and more and more devices into the ecosystem, and the coin app is a way for us to do that, to bring people who are not crypto people into the system. You can also run a Sentinel or Bridge or the other two components without the coin app, but it's not as easy for my grandma, for example, and so the idea is to grow that ecosystem and to grow the economy of the XYO token. We have a finite supply of the token, so as the economy grows, the value of the token should grow, and we have seen that, I think, in 2021. And also that brings in more data, brings in more buyers for that data, and we will grow there. And then our idea is that you basically spider net connecting the physical and digital realities, where we connect a data point, for example, that you own your headset, right? We know it's yours, that it's limited edition, and where you bought it, right? And you paid $10, let's say, and there's 1 out of 10 you have, and then your avatar in the metaverse, right, has the same headset, right? But it's fireworks come on, and this way your headset suddenly has more value. Right, so you can sell it at a higher price, and also if you resell it, it has value in a metaverse type setting as well. And so our what we are doing is basically creating more and more and more and more spider web between real world and between the digital realities as well, and connecting all the data points, trusted data points with each other.
What would be like if you could, wave a magic wand and have anything change instantaneously? Would you want there to be 10 times more devices out there, IoT devices? Would you what would really be a catalyst for growth, do you think?
Yeah, we work on getting these 10 times more devices. So we're working on some SDK solutions. There's XYO SDK, and we are creating it in a way that provides lots of value to apps from other companies and to mobile phone manufacturers. So that it might be a catalyst that there could be tens of millions of users quite quickly, actually. And so we want to basically have more devices to connect more data points with each other. And I think once you have the data and you are able to do something useful with it, then the clients will come who want to buy that data. It's happening right now, and it's accelerating.
So what drives that acceleration? Is there I assume people aren't making devices for this purpose. They're making devices for other purposes. And examples would be like an IoT device it could be your phone. It could be, but more novel, more new would be something like a smart microwave or any device that connects to the Wi-Fi. Your lights, I have smart lights in my home. Are those the kind of things that are center of the bullseye when you think of IoT devices? Is that the majority of the market share?
It is. But those ones are now static devices, so you have a limited ability to collect data from them. They're still useful, right? Because they give you a cryptic a handshake with, let's say, your phone, which moves around the whole day. So they're basically an anchor in the world, in your relative world. But the holy grail are mobile phones, I think, and devices which move around.
Is there any way to is there ever a scenario where there would just be these IoT devices everywhere? Is there any incentive or any reason to, say, a city, for instance, say I live in Portland, Oregon. Would Portland, Oregon ever want to what if they just deployed 10,000 IoT devices? They just stuck them on, they're like solar panels, they're 2 inches. They just stick them on the side of buildings and all over the place, and everything's connected. Is that a practical future, or is there incentive there for that to happen?
Yeah, for sure. Because then, you can say with certainty that the car was in the parking spot, right? And that you know a lot about traffic density, for example. You can change your traffic lights on the fly to improve traffic flow. And you can have connected parking meters, which know when the car is there, and then charge the car by the minute, let's say, and give you automatic tickets and whatever kind of thing. So smart cities, it's like endless applications there for our technology.
Have you followed any of these smart city innovators? I've read a couple articles that people have really conceptualized at this point. I don't think there's been much funding to it, although there's one project outside of Phoenix or somewhere in Phoenix where they're effectively dedicating like a number of blocks, maybe like 10 or so blocks, and they're redesigning this like intercity living in a completely new way. So it's pedestrian first. It's all IoT devices. It's smart transportation, and it seems like, to me, I get pretty excited about that because it seems like cities and infrastructure are a kind of thing that are difficult to improve gradually. Like you kind of commit to one design, and then in order to change it, you sort of have to just build a new one. Have you followed or have any interesting perspectives on where you think the future of cities goes, or people, human organizations?
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing. What you just mentioned is like building new or using existing infrastructure. If you build everything new, it's just cost prohibitive, politically not possible, I think, and maybe environmentally could be very damaging, at least in the short term. But you have great projects like in Toronto, right, tries to do a really amazing connected city type of stuff, not the whole city, but a certain part of Toronto. And then in the Middle East, like in the United Arab Emirates or in Saudi Arabia, they are working to build like hyper-connected new cities. And that works really well, I think, because they're new cities and they can have flying taxis and like all the things we really want to see in our cities too. But I think Elon Musk has like shown, right, for electric cars, for example, to work. Others have tried before him, right, and failed. And the way one big reason they succeeded is because they built out the charging infrastructure, but on existing infrastructure, right? So existing power lines and existing parking spaces, and everything was existing. And then they put an add-on there, right, which was the superchargers. And suddenly, the electric cars were viable. And I think the same is true for connected cities. For them to be able to work, we need to come up with like add-ons which work in our current settings and which bring you a lot of bang for the buck, basically, and by using existing infrastructure.
So is there a plan to, or have you thought about, or are you building devices? Does that make sense? Hardware?
Yeah, we used to build devices. But now we use contract manufacturers, but we are not focused on the creation of our own devices right now, just because of the deployment would be time consuming and costly. What we want to do, just because of that, we want to be able to upgrade existing infrastructure like your phone, right, or be able to upgrade your firmware in an IoT device. The reason is, if you build your own IoT network, you need such massive amounts of money. And while you could do it in a much cheaper way and use existing IoT infrastructure and do it in a cheaper way. So we have designs for our own hardware in our drawers, but right now we're mostly focused on using existing infrastructure.
Interesting topic, really. I love it. I love thinking about where cities go, how interacting with people works on mass scales in a networked way. Anything that I should have asked you, anything you wanted to chat about that you find interesting that we didn't cover, that you think about?
Excellent. We covered a lot. Like, really, it was super fun. Let me think. You ask really good questions.
Yeah, I love it. I love what you guys are working on.
Yeah.
How about Yeah, we could throw out certainly where to learn more. XYO.network. You guys have a Telegram group, bunch of all the social channels. I'm sure are very easy to find. Are you on any? So do you tweet actively or write anywhere? Or I know you obviously do podcasting.
Don't.
Yeah,
I don't. I redirect all my social to the company. My LinkedIn is even empty. If you look at it, connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me.
Is it empty for a reason? You just anti LinkedIn?
No. I think it's very useful, but I emptied it when it was difficult for us to get a bank account. I spoke with more than 100 banks, and to get a bank account after Wells Fargo shut down our account, because they're anti-crypto anyway.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's not about me. It's about the XYO network, and I want to do everything XYO. So I'm.
How is it now? Did you guys end up working with? I know Evolve Bank is pretty. SVB is the landscape. You and I were actually probably looking for bank accounts in crypto at the same time in 2018. We ended up just using Chase, and it just worked out. But it could just get shut down in a minute, which is so scary.
Yeah. Chase didn't want us then. Now they might. SVB had a $10 million minimum, which was which you had to keep in the bank account, which didn't make sense for a small business account. And a lot of others just said no. Now we're good and have backup bank accounts and those kind of things. But and also I think the ecosystem changed. If you go in the bank and you say crypto, they're still a little scared. Lots of traditional banks, but they don't think you're Pablo Escobar anymore.
Yeah. Or at least they think you might not be.
An advisor of ours who is at the World Economic Forum, he said to me, the fines are just so large these banks face relative to the money they make from us crypto companies that it's not worth it for them to engage with us. Yeah. And that makes sense, right? Like banks want to profit too, right?
Yeah.
But if the fear of loss is larger, then they don't work with you.
I think that's true. I think there's also a psychological component to the people who start and grow banks. Tends to be like if you brought up crypto and said explain Bitcoin, they probably couldn't. They're probably unfamiliar, so it's dark and scary and unfamiliar. And so there's until the explosion of price in crypto, there just hasn't been an interest in exploring it. Like you say, they're just less apprehensive. But the beauty of a free market is that some banks do, and some entrepreneurs start banks or buy banks and change them. So I'm optimistic. I think there's a pathway where the traditional banking and payment system can integrate sustainably with crypto, as long as something crazy doesn't happen.
Yeah, I believe that too. It depends how fast it is. It's a regulatory question, I think. But America is moving there, right? And we don't know in which direction yet. But I don't think that America wants to lose its competitive edge in technologies like crypto and blockchain, especially as a technology seeps into other things like AI and other things which are important to the government.
Damn right. Well, thanks so much, sir. Been awesome to get to know you, and congrats on the progress of everything, Markus. Danke.
Thank you. And thank you. That was so much fun.
Cheers.